there is some new footage online that I would encourage people to have a look at. It's available on the Seconds Out YouTube channel. It's a good YouTube channel. I recommend people follow that channel, have a look at it. Now in that video we see Chris Eubank Jr. sparring a light heavyweight prospect who's 6-1. I'm told that prospect's name is Tariq Quadas. Apologies if I've mispronounced the surname there. Now, on first value, Eubank Jr. is fighting a bigger man in sparring, and he does, conceivably win every round. But it's definitely worth watching the footage in detail, because it's extended footage of real high quality, and it tells us quite a bit about Eubank Jr. ahead of his fight with Billy Joe Saunders. Let's analyse the opponent very, very briefly. Now, the fact that Eubank Jr. is sparring a light heavyweight who's 6-1 may, on the face of it, sound very, very strong. But if we look at the opponent, out of his 6 victories, none of them come against somebody with a winning record. He was also KO'd in his second fight by Jamie Ambler, whose record at the time was 5 wins, 21 losses and 1 draw. So this Tariq Quadas, I don't want to make a judgment on how talented, how far he can go. I haven't seen him fight. I don't know too much about him. What I can say is that he's a light heavyweight, and at this point he hasn't operated at anything like Southern area level, let alone British level, in my opinion. So don't forget that when watching the footage, that whilst it is a bigger man, it's a man who is very, very unproven. Nevertheless, Eubank Jr. does well in spots and should be commended for, as I see it, winning pretty much every round in the sparring session. However, it's not necessarily the result I'm looking at here. It's the certain insights you see. Let's start with the positives from Chris Eubank Jr. People who watch my channel will know I'm picking Billy Joe Saunders in this fight, so I don't want to make this into a rant about areas of weakness for Chris Eubank Jr. because I don't actually have anything against him whatsoever. Let's start by looking at the positives. For a start, what I liked about this performance in sparring was there was no silliness from Eubank Jr. There was no play acting. There was no moving around the ring ridiculously. It was a sort of professional performance. He didn't do any of the showboating, and I like that, because if he does stuff like that against a fighter like Billy Joe Saunders, he's going to get exposed. He needs to be on his game 100% of the time. Eubank's jab was good, especially, and I'd like to see him do this more, the double jab. He looked really tasty when he's throwing a double jab. The jab's got definite snap to it. He's got hand speed. I don't think he's the most brutal puncher, but his jab's definitely got a bit of sting in it. So even against the sort of bigger man, as we saw in this fight, and you can see the opponent is a bigger man than Eubank Jr. Eubank was throwing a jab really, really nicely. If he can establish that in the Saunders fight, it will stand him in good stead, certainly. Eubank Jr.'s conditioning, to me, looked very good. In between rounds, he didn't look like he was struggling. He looked very much in shape. He looked ready to fight already. I know we're still 2 weeks away from fight night, but to my eyes, he looked like he was in good shape, fit, ready to go. So no problems about him. I know he hasn't fought, I think, in anything more than an 8-rounder before. I don't necessarily have the greatest concerns about, his stamina if it goes to around 9, 10, 11 and 12. He hasn't given us any reason to doubt he's got that stamina problem. So there's a lot to like about him. There was also some good variety to his work. He throws a very, very nice uppercut when he gets on the inside. It's like quite a short uppercut, but he was able to land that cleanly quite a few times. Sometimes he works the body with a left hook to the body, right hook to the body. There's some nice stuff. There's stuff to like about the guy. His jab is good, particularly the double jab. He's in shape. He was professional. Good variety to his work. I don't want to be too brutal on him. Having said that, there's a few things which I think should cause concern to all of those who are considering betting on Chris Eubank Jr, or just to those who've really nailed their colours to his mast, so we say. The guy is hittable, and this is hittable, I know it's slightly different in sparring, but hittable by a sort of slower, less mobile, less talented, less experienced fighter than Billy Joe Saunders. I appreciate that his opponent, being a light heavyweight, is a bigger, maybe a rangier man, but the guy on numerous occasions does catch Eubank Jr with the jab. Eubank Jr.'s hands are not as high and as tight as they need to be. The guy is hittable. Now, against Billy Joe Saunders, he's not a one-punch knockout artist. You can take the odd jab without losing the fight, but it's something you really don't want to see if he's going to be fighting elite level middleweights in general. I also think, and this is perhaps more worrying, that Eubank Jr is very susceptible to being hit in the body. I don't think defensively he's all there yet. You know, as I say, he's taking jabs, eating jabs to the face. His opponent was able to land multiple quite attractive body shots. Mainly we're talking the jab to the body. There was one or two times he caught him really nicely with a jab to the body, but also in close. And I think that's something that, you know, a European level fighter like Billy Joe Saunders will be able to expose. I don't think Eubank Jr is a defensive mastermind at this point. And this ties in with my next point, that I also don't think Eubank Jr is at his best on his back foot. I think the guy is a front foot heavy fighter. He's at his absolute best when he's allowed to dominate an opponent, when he's allowed to flurry all over them with, you know, aggressive, multiple punching combinations. The guy's got smarts inside, you know, he's wise with what to do when he's getting in an inside fight. He's got decent punches, and if you let him back you up into the ropes and sort of flurry all over you with this, you know, the nice uppercuts, the body work, the fast hands, you're in trouble. That's when he looks at his best. But I do think when he's put under pressure, when he's put on his back foot, and when an opponent is coming forward, giving him body work, the guy is vulnerable. He goes into a little bit of a defensive shell for my liking. He isn't as good technically in my eyes as someone like Billy Joe Saunders on his back foot. Perhaps that's not a surprise given the difference in the success the two had in the amateurs. You know, you'd expect Billy Joe to have the more sort of advanced technical capabilities. But what I think Billy Joe is bringing to the table is very, very advanced movement, advanced footwork and foot speed, advanced hand speed. To my eye, Eubank Jr has been facing an inferior level of opposition. He does throw some very nice shots. He's got a real snappy jab, a lovely uppercut. He works the body. He has got some attributes. But he's been in with an inferior level opposition who have allowed him to dominate, who have allowed him to showcase all of these lovely shots. It's not that they're not good. It's that I don't think he's going to be in a position to land them against a talent like Billy Joe Saunders. You know, Billy Joe is not going to be up against the ropes, letting this guy flurry all over him, letting this guy, you know, get on the inside, letting this guy rough him up and land, you know, 10 inside punches in a second. That's not going to happen. You know, Billy Joe is a mover. Billy Joe is going to put Eubank Jr in an uncomfortable technical, you know, he's going to pose Eubank Jr uncomfortable technical questions in the ring. You know, if this guy, you know, this 6-1 light heavyweight was able to land his jab on Chris Eubank Jr, it's safe to assume that Billy Joe is going to be able to do that. If this guy is able to jab Eubank Jr to the body and land numerous punches to Eubank Jr.'s body, it is safe to assume Billy Joe Saunders will be able to do that. And most importantly, if this guy is going to be able to make Eubank Jr look uncomfortable on his back foot, it's going to be able to put the pressure on him. I appreciate he may be a bigger man, But a talent like Billy Joe Saunders is going to do that. There's all sorts of questions Eubank Jr is going to have to face. To my eyes, this sparring footage is interesting because not only do we know Eubank Jr hasn't faced these questions in a professional ring, he hasn't faced an elite level middleweight with an elite level movement, footwork, amateur background, hand speed. That's a fact. But we also know when he faces someone in sparring who offers even a hint of those attributes, he becomes hittable, his defence is under question, his back foot capability is under question. For me, this would be a very, very big worry for supporters of Chris Eubank Jr. We know what a step up in class this is for Chris. There is no disputing that Billy Joe Saunders is head and shoulders above anybody Eubank Jr has fought in a professional ring. My fear is that this, I think Billy Joe will win, but I'd like it to be a very good fight because this is got the potential to be a classic. But the more I think about this, the more I think there's the potential here for Billy Joe to win quite widely, for this not to be ultra competitive. Billy Joe's going to ask so many questions of Eubank that he's never been asked before in a professional ring competitively. And to me, this sparring footage poses more questions than it answers. As I say, I don't want to completely slate Chris. He goes in with a much bigger man who's got a winning record, and he wins every round. He's very eye-catching at points. There's a lot to like. The double jab, the uppercut, the bodywork, the snap to his punches, the fitness, the conditioning, the stamina. There's a lot to like. But there's still enough questions to suggest to me that he's 2 or 3 fights away from European title level. And I view Billy Joe Saunders as stronger and more capable and more technical and more gifted than the average European champion. Let us not forget this is an outstanding amateur who went to the Olympics when he was in his teenage years, unbeaten as a professional, taken the winning records of guys like Emmanuel Blandamura, John Ryder, beat Jared Fletcher convincingly, who went on to fight for a world title. Billy Joe is a serious, serious talent. Like him or hate him, there's no disputing that the guy has got attributes, he's got talent, he's got pedigree to the extreme. And I just think the questions and the difficulties that Eubank Jr faced in those sparring sessions, where at times he didn't look the most comfortable to my eye, will not compare to the difficulties and the questions that Billy Joe Saunders will put him under. I'm keen to hear people's thoughts. As I say, recommend you watch the footage on the Second Out YouTube channel. Very, very intriguing. Have I got this one wrong? What did you think of that sparring session? What did you think of the opponent? Keen to hear people's thoughts. For anyone who's interested, I'm on Twitter @BoxingGossip. Feel free to follow me, I'll follow back. Thanks for watching.